Hello, folks. How are you? I'm back, and so I'm going to share some additional vocal ideas with you. Let me mention one thing. My tenor teacher, James King, had studied in Europe with Ludwig Sudhaus and Max Lawrence, and they were two established, esteemed Helden tenors at that time. And James King had made the transition from baritone to tenor. He was 36, 38, something like that when he made the transition. So rather older. And he had a brilliant career. And then in America, he worked with some people that he took me to, Orrin Brown and Ellen Rep. And I talked to you in the last day or two about what Ellen Rep shared with me in doing the like 2-octave leaps, things like that. And then I'll show you in a few minutes the things I got from Orrin Brown. In terms of, I don't really recall if it was Max Lawrence or Ludwig Sudhaus that talked to him about resonance in the mouth. And this is something James said, to get more resonance, like cavity resonance, you really kind of approach the voice a little bit like someone who speaks with an impediment. Like, hi, my name is Tom. My name is Tom, and what is your name? So you're accessing, like that. So always think of some consequential significant resonance rather than like, hi, how you doing? I'm Tom. My uncle is Willie Nelson, and we do To All the Girls I've Loved Before. So there's some people, that's how they sing, and that's what they think is the right way. Now, one other little idea here, I had met during my time at the opera school Alfredo Kraus, who was there doing Rigoletto. Really brilliant, really fabulous. What a great singer, great artist, just beloved the world over by colleagues and audiences. He told me that he thought of placing his voice here, like a little pinpoint between the eyes. And he really sang that way, very effective, Werther, and he stayed in the lyric realm. He didn't try to do dramatic things. He certainly had the high notes. And so some people have worked with that concept and worked with him and had, very successful outcomes. But I think it's a little bit more, and that's definitely one approach. And I think you have a little bit higher larynx in that kind of placement. But who's going to criticize Alfredo Kraus's brilliant output of great performances? So, but that's another idea. Sometimes I think about that a little bit. Maybe something that's a little bit more lyric, like if I were singing and I had performed the aria sometimes from Werther, Pourquoi me réveiller. It's a little bit different placement than like Celestia Aida, which is a more typically for a tenor, more tenore robusto, a little bit more spinto or dramatic tenor. Even though now it seems like we have even leggero tenors thinking they should sing it. I don't know where that's coming from, but not as effective. But and then James King had the approach like with the space in the mouth, like, hi, my name is Tom. My name is Forrest Gump. So you try to access that resonance. Okay. So going a little further, there is a teacher to the stars, Seth Riggs, who's taught a lot of people. He taught Eduardo Villa and a couple of sopranos and mezzos whose names I forget at the moment. He also taught Ray Charles and Stevie Wonder, Madonna, Michael Jackson. I also believe Michael Douglas took some lessons, and he was not cheap, $1,000, $1,500, $2,000 a lesson. And anyway, but he talks about, and he has a book, Singing to the Stars, and he talks about something called singing on the vocal edge, it's like a creaky door. So I think the idea of that is like kind of singing kind of on the edge of the vocal cords, is so you don't overblow them out trying to make a big sound, that you don't get like too throaty and too muscular. And when I talk about singing in the throat, it's just that the vocal cords are down here, and the air is down there, but it doesn't mean you should get like, I don't know, you're doing a 500-pound deadlift and you have to, make that grunting, choking sound. No one likes that. And that kind of sound actually might sound really big to you up close, but I can promise you it doesn't project into the hall. And then sometimes in rehearsals, I remember 10 or years ago, I think it's Vittorio Terranova. Maybe, I don't know if he's related to Gianluca Terranova. Maybe they're family, maybe just similar name. But in rehearsals, this Vittorio Terranova had a basically very small sounding voice, but in the theater, on the stage from Lyric Opera, that voice just pinged right out. And you're like, well, whatever he's doing, it's like, it's projecting, it's working. And a wonderful colleague. And so it shows you can't always evaluate, someone that you're hearing correctly. I will say that none other than the great Franco Corelli, and probably one of the greatest natural voices and also hard workers ever to sing opera, said ultimately the voice is a mystery. So for someone like me, I think if Franco Corelli thinks the voice is a mystery, the rest of us have no hope. You just have to realize that he was very humble about it and he understood a lot, but then sometimes it's like my mind is going here and my voice is going there and they don't want to talk to each other. So it's just something about that. So somehow you have to find how to blend them together so that what you think you can bring out. So, all right, jumping ahead to a couple little exercises here. After my little lecture, my daughter would call it a lecture. Anyway, there was a teacher that James King had worked with some, and he sent me to him, called Orrin Brown, who taught at Juilliard and was a kind of a vocal therapist. He did a lot of work helping people overcome like vocal injuries, like polyps or bruising in the vocal cords, even strokes, other things where there was dysfunction in the vocal cords. And he tended to like a little bit lighter approach. He liked to use what I call the falsetto sob, which is legitimate. You'll hear a lot of tenors use it, sometimes for emotion, but it's also a technical thing. And, so that he also had a great saying, better a little too little than a little too much. Because many of us we're kind of driven. We'll sing one song too many, 1/2 hour too long. We always are pushing, and that's not always wise. It's sometimes better to like just step back a little bit. Probably like even in conversation, you can just say one thing too much and start a fight, or you can just step back, hold off, and let things proceed more smoothly. So that was, I thought, actually good advice. So sometimes I'll think, hey, I'm kind of tired. I've been working for 2 hours or whatever. Take a break. Might come back tomorrow or something. So very good advice. So and he's got a book. I forget the name of it at the moment, and you'll find some videos. So he's a knowledgeable guy. Part of what he does, I don't entirely like. He might do this. I might do this. Very comfortable for me, very natural. And he would do, oh no, Tom, you should have. I can't sing like that for a long time, or for an aria, certainly for an opera. It'll just wear me out, and I can't control my voice. So I think the idea of that is like in composers, where you see sometimes a phrase and they have MP or PP, and you think like, I don't think they really mean for us to sing that softly, but they want to discourage the singer from over singing or yelling or thinking, oh, it's a high note, I'm going to sing as loud as I can. They want some expression and gentleness, so they put I figure, an excessive or an extreme dynamic marking. And I think that's partly where Orrin Brown is coming from, that some singers are overdriven, especially in the beginning. They want to show off, like, wait till you hear my voice, wait till you hear my high note, you won't believe it, and they overgun it. So he wants to like pull you back a little bit, so you have more finesse, more tenderness, more even dolce, sweetness, But it's a balance. It's all a balance in terms of taste and your voice and someone else's voice. How are you going to use it, right? Ah! pretty comfortable for me. What is not comfortable is trying to pull back already feels a little bit constricted. However, there are places in phrasing and in mood and dynamics and art songs and other styles where you would, like if you take Don Giovanni as an example, you'd have like Fin caladino calda la testa, una gran festa fa preparar. The champagne aria. You're very ebullient and inviting everyone to the party, and then you have the serenade. Te vieni alla finestra, oh mio tesoro. Right? So more tender, more gentle. So a good singer has to have a range of expression, and the nature of the song, the nature of the drama, the nature of the poetry, the nature of the libretto, all of that dictates, how you're going to be. Even the angry brute like Scarpia, at some point, he's all, terrifying and threatening, and other times he's very, very seductive. Now, he's not tender for a good reason. He's seductive. He's gonna ensnare you. So, but there's a place for that kind of singing. Okay. All right. So to jump ahead to the exercise, this is what Orrin Brown would do, and it's a legitimate thing, and you can use it sometime. It has to do with the sob, the baby cry. Ah, ha, 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 like. Ah, so you can hear how that works, and you'll hear tenors that get into the sob mode. I think Piotr Beczala, I hear that in his voice. The great Polish tenor. I heard it in Richard Tucker. It's a little bit more exaggerated, and some of that comes from the Jewish cantorial style, but you'll hear that kind of sob quality. Sometimes even in Berganzi, who sang more evenly and placidly, but you'll hear that sometimes definitely for effect. And sometimes it will help you to launch like a higher note, I don't know. I think it incorporates that slight edge that I talked about earlier from Seth Riggs, the squeaky door. And I think what it does, it just kind of accesses a little bit smaller portion of the chords. That's just my assumption. I'm not a scientist. And then it has less weight to try to access the full pitch. And one thing you definitely do not want is to drag a lot of weight up to the top, or pretty much anywhere in the voice. If it's artificial weight, if you're a leggero tenor trying to sing like a dramatic tenor, that's a huge mistake. And actually, if you're a dramatic tenor, most of the more dramatic voices, they all talked about bel canto, about singing more lyrically, more expressively, and not always gunning the voice. And you can pace even how you gun the voice. If you look even at Otello, the big orchestral outbursts are kind of in between the vocal lines. They're not usually on top of the vocal lines for the most part. You have a line that bam, have a line, bam, the orchestra is kind of interspersed. And even Wagner, to some extent, is a little bit that way. Even though occasionally it gets really big and it just overlaps and you just have to pray to survive. So, but you have to just be very smart how you're going to, traverse all of that. So, all right, so you can do the sob, ha, ha, ha. Ha, 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 ha. So that's actually kind of restorative and refreshing in many respects, and it's also, I think it can be more expressive in terms of trying to express emotion. So that's kind of one thing that I got from Orton Brown. And actually, if you listen to James King, who did a lot of recordings, I think he made 25 or 28 recordings and about 30 videos. So during his day, he produced a lot of work. Did Das Lied von der Erde with Leonard Bernstein. It's a great recording. I think Fischer Dieskau was the baritone on that, and you will hear that he kind of uses that sob approach, which, for example, in my own history, I did Bacchus and Ariadne of Naxos, and, they have a lot of high-flying entrances where you just come in from way up high and over and over and over again, and you're just exposed out there. And so that is an approach to kind of get through that. You certainly don't want to beef it up too much up there. If you have a bigger voice or darker voice, it's going to be beefy enough. You don't have to manufacture it, and so that's a way to get past that. Let me see anything else, and then you hear that resonance quality I talked about with James King, the resonance in the mouth space, inside, not so much in the cheeks or here, but that's in the mouth. Right? So ultimately, it's definitely up to your judgment, but I think it's good to have a toolbox of ideas and technology, and able to kind of adjust a little bit how you might approach certain challenges in different songs and arias and roles, and because they have different challenges. For the tenor, Cavaradossi has different challenges than Otello, which has different challenges than Siegmund, which is almost a baritone role. But how do you sing that without forcing your voice down into a baritone register and then having trouble getting out of it? So that's interesting. And Carmen, for example, the last act is very declamatory and very challenging, and you really better know how to establish those declamatory outbursts without tiring your voice. But in the first act, you have the duet with Michaela, which is very legato and very sweet. It's almost like Mozart, and two different voices in the same opera from the same character. And you have that in Berlioz at times too, where it's like very dramatic, and then other places very legato. It's like you have 2 or 3 different types of tenors, and you have to adjust. Damnation of Faust, Natur die Mansa, rather hefty and dramatic and a big statement. And then you have, the part of the duet with Margarita, where everything is like almost childlike. It's so delicate. And the orchestra is just strings, like on the surface of the bow or surface of the string. And so you don't want to be rolling out a big sound in a moment like that. So if your voice you only have one tool, you're going to be quite limited. So anyway, I hope that kind of helps some of the singers who are looking for answers to some of the challenges. And many of my colleagues, I'm sure they understand all this quite well. And, but thanks for listening. Always happy to have comments and input. And I think that's about it for today. It looks like I'm closing on 20 minutes again. I always kind of joke a little bit, tenors, we talk more. So what can I tell you? Hope it's helpful, and look forward to hearing from you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.